This video is for section 8.3. Our objectives in this section are to graph parabolas in two forms. The first one is called vertex form, and the second one is standard form, and determine a quadratic function's minimum or maximum value. So we have the graph of a quadratic function, which is called a parabola. A quadratic function means that it can be written in the form f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is function notation. Remember that f of x can also be used instead of y in graphing. We talked about that back with lines. And then our quadratic function always has an x squared term. And so this graph is called a parabola. All parabolas have a turning point. Which is called the vertex. So there's two ways that a parabola could look. One is that it looks like a U shape with both arrows pointing upward. And back when we talked about leading coefficients, this is kind of the same thing. This is called a parabola that opens up or opens upward. Both arrows are pointing upward. And that happens if the leading coefficient is positive, or a is positive. A is in front of x squared, that's the leading coefficient. Degree here is even, which means both arrows point in the same direction, because the degree is 2. Or you could have a parabola that looks like an upside down U shape, which we say it opens down or opens downward. And that happens if the leading coefficient a is negative. So if it's opening downward, the vertex is going to be the highest point of the parabola. And if it opens upward, the vertex is going to be the lowest point of the parabola. So we're going to start by looking at how to graph quadratic functions when they're written in what's called vertex form. Vertex form is f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And the reason that this is called vertex form is that it's very easy to find the vertex in the equation. So that's going to be our first step in graphing. The vertex is h comma k. So whatever number is subtracted from x inside the parentheses is the x coordinate of the vertex. Whatever number is added by itself is the y coordinate of the vertex. Now you have to be careful with signs here because in the equation it's x minus h. So if it's x minus 2 in the equation, h would be positive 2. K has the same sign. So if it's minus 2 for k, then k would be minus 2. So h, opposite sign, k, same sign. Second step is to determine the y-intercept. And we do that by plugging in 0 for x. So we're going to look at example 1. This is to graph the quadratic function. f of x equals negative 2 x minus 3 squared plus 8. The first thing that I would recommend when you're doing these problems is determine whether the parabola is going to open up or down, because that can help you visualize and also help you make sure that you're getting the right answer here. So my value of a is going to be in front of the parentheses when it's in vertex form. A is negative 2 in this case, so that means it's negative. And since it's negative, I expect that the parabola is going to open down. Second step is to find the vertex. So looking at the equation, this is going to be the h, and this is going to be the k. So h is going to be positive 3, because it's the opposite sign, and k is going to be positive 8, because it's the same sign. So 3, 8 is going to be my vertex. So that's going to be right here. And then I know it's going to open downwards, so the parabola is going to be below that point. That's going to be the highest point on the parabola. Lastly, I'm going to get the y-intercept. So I'm going to plug in 0 for x, or in other words, find f of 0. So that's going to be negative 2 times 0 minus 3 squared plus 8. Now this is going to take a little bit of algebra and a lot of paying attention to order of operations and signs. First thing I'm going to do is what's in parentheses. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Then I'm going to do the exponent. Negative 3 squared is positive 9. Negative times negative. Then I'm going to multiply. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18. And negative 18 plus 8 is negative 10. So that's going to be my y-intercept. So I mark that point on the y-axis. So negative 10 is going to be right here. Now, drawing this in is going to be pretty easy on my math lab. Not quite as easy when you're drawing it by hand, but basically you're going to draw from the vertex, either up or down to the y-intercept. Try and make it as U-shaped as you can. I'm not going to be able to do a very good job on here, but it should look more or less like that. Now let's look at what this looks like in the homework. So it says to use the vertex and intercepts to sketch the graph of the quadratic function. So we click to enlarge graph. The button for drawing parabolas is in the second row on the left, this button right here. And when you're plotting a parabola, you always need to plot the vertex first. So that's the first point that I'm going to plot. That's going to be 3, negative 1. So I'm going to plot that right there. Now once you click on that, if you move your arrow around, you see different parabolas show up, and it's just going to fill in the shape depending on where you click the second point. If you go below the vertex, it's going to make a parabola that opens downward. This one I can tell is going to open upward. Technically, you can click on any point to plot the second point, but usually the easiest one to find is the y-intercept. The book tells you how to find the x-intercepts too, which you can look at if you want to, but that's kind of a little bit more work. So I'm just going to plot the y-intercept, which in this case looks like it's going to be 8. So I click on that point. Once I have the 2 points plotted, click on save, and then check my answer. And that's correct. So next you should do checkpoint problem number 1. Do this in your notes, check your answer, and then move on with the rest of the video. Next we're going to look at example 2. This is really similar to example 1. There's not a lot in here that's new or different. So we're going to start by identifying if the parabola is going to open up or down. In this case, there's no number in front of the parentheses, so it's an automatic positive 1, which is positive. Which means that it opens up. Next, I'm going to find the vertex. So this is going to be h, and this is going to be k. Now for h, it says x plus 3 in the equation. That means my h is negative 3, because it's minus negative 3. K is going to be positive 1. K has the same sign, h has the opposite sign. So negative 3, 1 is going to be right here. And then find the y-intercept. So plug in 0 for x. So it's going to be 0 plus 3 squared plus 1. Follow order of operations. 0 plus 3 is 3. This one doesn't have the negative signs to deal with, so that makes it a little bit easier. 3 squared is 9, and 9 plus 1, 9 plus 1 equals 10. Erase that. So my y-intercept is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out of room here. Let me make this a little bit, scale it a little differently. Okay, so negative 3, 1 right here, and 10 be up here. And it opens upward. So it's going to look like this and like this. So you should try checkpoint problem number 2. Do this in your notes, check your answer with the notes that are posted, and then move on to the homework.